Hi everyone. I wanted to share some thoughts today about how we can take some of the burden away from creation. And this video was prompted by a sort of conversation I was having with someone in one of my groups, and I'd shared a video on creation in there. It was actually somebody else's video in the group. And this person had asked me a really interesting question, which was, how do you reconcile some of the teachings of the Eastern traditions, which tend to emphasize how desire is actually the root of all suffering, with some of the newer kind of teachings out there on law of attraction and things like that, which are about attempting to create more of what we want in life. And I thought it'd be a really interesting question to explore, because what I got from this person's message, they were indicating that, there's a way in which creation can start to feel burdensome at times, especially if it feels like it's more and more on our shoulders. And I wanted to speak to, well, what is it that makes creation feel burdensome? And is there something that we can begin to come alive to that can actually completely change our relationship to creation? And the first thing I see is that, yes, there's absolutely truth to a lot of what the Eastern traditions point to, and things like the three principles and things like that, which suggest that there is a way in which the more we desire change, the more we want change, the more it can actually take us away from what we're looking for. And what I mean by that is, when you really drill down and you look at the things that you might be seeking in your life, and you really genuinely ask yourself the question, well, why do I want that? Usually it starts to boil down to some version of, well, I'll be at peace. Oh, well, then I'll be okay. So there's a sense of it'll be okay when X, Y, and Z happens or is created or made. And the problem with that is that every moment we're involved with those ideas that our life will be better when something has changed, we don't experience well-being whatsoever. And in fact, if we don't manage to create the thing that we're trying to create, then we defer our sense of well-being forever. Now, why does that happen? Well, from what I can see, we start off in a space of peace. We start off in a place of well-being. And that's what a lot of the Eastern traditions point to. We are what we seek. And the problem is, once we've externalized that space of well-being and we say, well, I want this or I want that, well, now we get very busy up here and we start trying to troubleshoot, well, how do I get to this thing that I want in order to have well-being? And the more we're in that noise, the more we're in that thinking, the more we're trying to troubleshoot and figure it all out, the more we are taking ourselves away from that space of peace and from that space of well-being. So there's absolutely value in what the Eastern traditions point to, and so many other traditions, not just those. Like, they point to the fact that we are what we're looking for. We are that peace. We are that well-being. It is what is there underneath all of our attempts to get somewhere else. And the more we can begin to see that, the less we want to engage with trying to change our worlds in order to find that space. But what does that mean in terms of creation? Does that mean, well, okay, now I found that space, what do I do? Just sit and do nothing? Well, no, not from what I see. It simply changes the nature of our desires, and it changes the energy behind them. So no longer do we start seeking external creation and external things from a space of need or trying to be okay, because the more we're connected to that space of being okay, we don't need to find it in external things. But that doesn't mean that we might not want to create new things, right? And so the whole energy around creation is no longer around need. It's around looking at, well, actually, am I creating this because it's actually what I want to create or not? And we just start to get curious and playful about what we start to want to create in the world, but not from a space of need and lack, but from a space of abundance and from the divinity of who we are. So that for me is how we can start to have a more enjoyable experience of creation. We first come to recognize that there's nothing outside of us that is going to give us that space of peace. Nothing whatsoever. And if you ever have moments where you suddenly drop into quiet, get curious about those moments, because it's not because something's changed in your life. It's because temporarily you've dropped out of this and the troubleshooting, and you've dropped into here, which is who you are. And the more you can start to get a sense of that, and that being how it works, the more your creative attempts in the world don't come from that space of lack anymore. They come from a space of, oh, well, wouldn't it be cool to play with this? Or, oh, look, I'm creating that. What's behind that? Is there a different way I can begin to explore that? Curiosity, playfulness, presence. These are the energies behind creation when we begin to connect back to that space of wholeness within us. And what you tend to find is that when you're in that place more, you actually start to create cooler things because you're not so attached to them anymore. You're much more able to follow the intuitive nudges that come to you, even if they don't make sense to this, because, well, you don't have to comply with the conditions your mind is making up when you recognize that it's your mind that is taking you away from your peace. You can just follow what comes up to you. And what I notice for myself is the more willing we are to just follow those nudges when they come from that quiet within us, the more magical the creations we come up with are, the more expansive they are, the more aligned they actually are with the depth of who we are. Um, and it becomes a much more playful and enjoyable experience. So just some thoughts about that. I thought it might be helpful for others as well. And if you've got some comments, I'd love to read them below. So feel free to pop them below and let me know what you reckon. But anyway, I hope you have a good rest of the day and sending lots of love. Bye.